Have you ever caught yourself whispering, "I did nothing wrong, so why does it still hurt?" Not out loud, just quietly, in the middle of a normal day, when the laundry is folded, when dinner's simmering, when you're brushing your teeth and staring into a mirror that holds more years than you remember adding. You've lived kindly, tried your best, helped when you could, hurt no one intentionally. But somehow life, it still turned rough. The calls stopped coming, the good ones left too soon, and the world, it didn't always reward your decency. Maybe no one says it out loud, but many of us grow old carrying a silent anger. Why do bad things happen to good people? It's a question that feels fair. It feels human. But from the Buddhist path, things look different. Because Buddhism doesn't see suffering as unfair. It doesn't divide the world into deserving and undeserving. Instead, it invites us to see that suffering isn't a punishment. It's a part of the fabric of being born, of loving deeply, of saying goodbye. So tonight, let's gently sit with this question, not to prove or deny it, but to open it. And maybe, through story, through stillness, you'll find a truth that doesn't fix the pain, but helps you walk through it with softer steps. Let's begin. Part 1. Suffering is not personal. It's universal. Why me? Why now? Why does life keep hurting me when I've done nothing but try to live with kindness? If you've ever sat alone in the early hours of the morning, watching the light slip through the window blinds while the ache in your chest refuses to fade, you've likely asked this question. It's a question whispered into silence, carried by those who have loved deeply, given generously, and still found themselves struck by loss, illness, or loneliness. We often believe that if we live well, if we are kind, if we don't hurt others, then life will spare us from sorrow. But the truth is, life doesn't measure worthiness in the way we think it does. And that's not because life is cruel. It's because suffering, as the Buddha saw so clearly beneath the Bodhi tree, is not a punishment. It's a condition of life itself. There is suffering, the Buddha said simply, naming it as the first noble truth, dukkha, not as a sentence to despair, but as an invitation to awaken. Let me share with you a story. It's a story as old as the Dharma itself, and perhaps you've heard it before, but stay with me, for in its retelling lies a new layer of meaning. There once was a young mother named Kisa Gotami, whose life shattered the day her only child fell ill and died in her arms. Her grief was unbearable, her cries endless. Refusing to believe her baby was truly gone, she cradled the lifeless body and walked from house to house, begging, "Please, someone give me medicine to bring my child back." The villagers pitied her, but none could help, until she arrived at the feet of the Buddha. Listening with deep compassion, he told her, "Yes, I can help you. But first, bring me a handful of mustard seeds from a household that has never known death." Her heart leapt with hope. Surely, such a house existed. And so she went, from door to door, village to village. But in every home, the answer was the same. "My husband passed last winter. We lost our daughter just 3 months ago. My mother died when I was still a child." Eventually, the truth dawned upon her, not with bitterness, but with a quiet understanding. Her suffering was not unique. It was shared. It was human. She returned to the Buddha, not with a cure for her child, but with a newly awakened heart. The Buddha had not healed her baby. He had healed her isolation. And maybe that's where we must begin. Because when we're in pain, real pain, the kind that leaves you breathless at the kitchen table or staring blankly out the window, it feels deeply, painfully personal, as if the universe has singled us out, as if we are the only ones carrying this unbearable weight. But here's the gentle truth. You are not alone in your suffering. No matter how isolated it feels, suffering visits every life in one form or another. Just like rain, it falls on all roofs. Not because the roof is weak or undeserving, but simply because rain falls. So why is this realization so important? Because the moment we stop asking, why me, and start asking, how do I walk through this with awareness, something changes. The pain doesn't disappear, but the loneliness, the illusion that we're being punished, or that something is wrong with us, begins to soften. The Buddha didn't promise a life without pain. He promised that we could come to understand it, and in doing so, be freed from it. And here's something curious to consider. What if your suffering isn't a mark of failure, but an opening? What if it's the beginning of a deeper awakening? There's a Zen saying that goes, the obstacle is the path. And sometimes the first step is to see clearly what's already here. So tonight, if the ache still lingers in your chest, if you feel like life has overlooked your efforts and goodness, remember this: pain is not proof that you're broken. It's proof that you're alive. And more importantly, you're not walking through it alone. You're walking a path trodden by countless others, by Kisa Gotami, by the Buddha himself, by all of us. Now the question becomes, what happens when we stop fighting the suffering and begin to understand it? What changes when we stop seeing it as a curse and begin to meet it with mindfulness? That's what we'll explore in the next step of this journey. Part 2. Perspective heals what pain distorts. What if pain isn't the whole picture, but only the part we're standing too close to see clearly? There's a certain kind of pain that narrows your world. It folds your attention inward until all you can see is the ache itself. Like fog pressing against the window pane, it makes everything feel dim, uncertain. In those moments, even the simplest encouragement, "This too shall pass," feels like a stranger's voice in a distant room. But what if we could rise above the fog, even for a moment? John Butler, a quiet spiritual teacher, once described suffering as being stuck in traffic on a hot summer day, windows rolled down, sweat on your neck, your heart racing because you're late to something important. Everything feels tight, loud, personal. But imagine, he said, that you suddenly rise above the road in a hot air balloon. The same jam is still there, same cars, same delay. But from above you see the gentle curve of the road, the trees swaying along its edges, the slow rhythm of movement. The frustration doesn't disappear, but your relationship with it changes. The pressure eases, the heart softens. In Buddhism, this shift is called right view, the first step of the Noble Eightfold Path. It is not about denial, it is about seeing clearly. There's a Zen story that speaks to this clarity. A student once asked his master, "Why do I suffer so much?" The master said nothing, only pointed to the moon. The student, confused, looked up. "I don't understand," he said. The master replied, "You stare only at your finger, not at what it's pointing to." The story ends there, but its echo continues. Often, we become so entangled in the specifics of our pain, the why, the how long, the what if, that we forget to look beyond. We forget to ask what the pain is pointing toward. You see, perspective isn't about escaping the suffering. It's about creating space around it. Space to breathe, space to observe, space to understand. There was once an older woman I met during a retreat in the countryside of Oregon. She had lost her husband of 40 years and came to the meditation hall every morning with a scarf wrapped around her shoulders and silence on her face. For days she said nothing. Then one afternoon, during a group reflection, she softly shared this, I thought I came here to stop hurting, but I realized I was trying to smother my grief. Then yesterday, while watching the fog roll over the hills, something shifted. The pain didn't go away, but I saw it from above, and I understood it was only one hill in a range of many. Her voice trembled, but her eyes were still, and in that moment, we all understood what she meant. Perspective didn't erase her loss. It restored her clarity. Buddha once said, "With our thoughts we make the world." When our thoughts are shaped by fear, we shrink. But when they're shaped by awareness, something expands. We begin to see that suffering is real, but so is impermanence. So is the sky beyond the storm. So here's the invitation. When the pain feels sharp, can you pause? Can you take a breath and gently ask, is this the whole picture, or just the part I'm clinging to? And if you can't rise above it yet, that's okay too. Sometimes, simply remembering that there is a higher view, even if you can't see it now, is enough to ease the grip. Because maybe the wound isn't asking to be healed right now. Maybe it's asking to be seen differently, to be held in a wider gaze, to be known not as your whole story, but just one chapter in it. And here's a thought to carry with you until we meet in the next reflection. What if the pain you're carrying is not asking you to solve it, but to shift your angle, to turn gently and notice what lies just beyond its edge? In our next step, we'll explore what it means to build that quiet strength, the kind that doesn't pretend suffering away, but walks beside it with steady breath and open heart. Part 3. The strongest mind is soft yet steady. What if real strength wasn't found in resistance, but in gentle resilience? What if the mind, like a river, was meant to flow, not freeze? There's a quiet myth many of us carry, often without realizing it, that to face suffering well, we must become hard, stoic, unshakable. We admire people who seem untouched by grief, who don't cry at funerals, who carry pain in silence, but beneath that silence, how much tightness must there be? How many wounds are simply wrapped too tightly to breathe? In the teachings of the Buddha, strength is not measured by how little you feel, but by how tenderly you hold what you feel without collapsing beneath it. And that kind of strength, a soft, steady, inner strength, is not born from avoiding suffering, but from facing it with compassion. There's a story about a monk who once struggled deeply with anger and despair. Every time he sat to meditate, memories of hurt and injustice would rise up like a tide. He tried to force them away, to suppress them, to be strong, but the more he fought, the louder the storm became. So one day, in exhaustion, he went to his teacher and confessed, "I cannot tame my mind. It is too wild, too wounded." His teacher simply nodded and handed him a cup of water. "Hold this with a closed fist," he said. The monk tried, but of course the water spilled everywhere. Now the teacher said, "Try again," with an open hand. The monk held the cup gently. The water stayed, and the teacher whispered, "That is how you hold the mind." It's a simple story, but like many Zen parables, it leaves a quiet echo in the heart. How often do we clench our minds? How often do we try to wrestle peace into submission? The Buddha himself faced enormous suffering, not only in the austerities of his early practice, where he nearly died of starvation, but also in the heartbreak of watching disciples misunderstand, close friends pass away, and kingdoms fall into conflict. And yet he never taught repression. He taught awareness. He taught a strength rooted in understanding. Train your mind to be firm like a rock. The Dhammapada says, unaffected by blame or praise, pleasure or pain. But notice, even a rock doesn't resist the wind. It simply stands. There's a woman I remember meeting during a hospice volunteer program. Her name was Lydia. 82 years old, soft-spoken, with a kind of eyes that seemed to hold entire oceans. She had lost her husband, 2 sons, and most of her mobility. But every Thursday, she would wheel herself into the meditation room, light a small candle, and sit in complete stillness. One afternoon I asked her how she managed to stay so peaceful. She smiled and said, "I've learned not to harden. When I tighten, the grief gets sharp. But when I breathe with it, it's just sorrow. Sorrow I can sit beside. It's like an old friend who visits but doesn't stay." That kind of strength doesn't come from pushing suffering away. It comes from making space for it, but not letting it take over the house. So how do we build this strength? We begin small. We pause when pain rises. We take one breath, then another. We speak to ourselves as we would to a frightened child. "It's okay. I see you. You're hurting, but I'm still here." We learn to stay, not to escape. And perhaps most powerfully, we stop praying for a life without difficulty. We start cultivating a mind that can remain soft, even in difficulty. Because here's the quiet paradox: the softest mind is often the strongest. Like bamboo in a storm, it bends but does not break. It moves with the wind, not against it. So if life feels heavy today, if you're tired of trying to be strong in the way the world expects, what if you let that go? What if you softened just a little and trusted that real strength is already in you, waiting to rise like breath through stillness? And in that softness, what might you begin to hear? In our next reflection, we'll turn toward a question that stirs beneath all of this. Why do good people still suffer? And what can Buddhist wisdom offer when the heart cries, "This isn't fair"? Part 4. Why good people still suffer. You've done your best. You've been kind. You've never wished harm upon anyone. And yet, life still breaks your heart. Why? It's a question whispered in hospital rooms, in quiet living rooms after funerals, and in long walks where the silence feels too heavy to bear. Why do good people suffer? Why does life seem to reward the selfish and punish the gentle? If you've ever asked this, know that you're not alone. Even the most devoted practitioners, even monks with decades of silence behind them, have sat with this ache in their chest. Because something deep within us longs for fairness, for balance, for good deeds to be met with ease, and for cruelty to find its consequence. But here's what the Buddha taught, something both difficult and liberating to accept. Life does not operate on a human sense of fairness. It flows according to causes and conditions, many of which are invisible to our eyes. Not in the sky, nor in the ocean, nor in the depths of a mountain cave is there a place where one can escape the consequences of their actions. The Dhammapada, this is karma, not as punishment, but as a natural unfolding of energy. However, karma is not immediate, and it is not simplistic. It is not a vending machine, where good in equals good out. It is a vast web of actions, intentions, conditions, and consequences, sometimes stretching across lifetimes. There's a story in the Jataka tales, the stories of the Buddha's past lives, about a kind and generous king who once suffered betrayal by those he had helped. When asked by his ministers why he did not retaliate, the king simply said, "They do what they know, I do what I must. My goodness is not a bargain. It is who I choose to be." And perhaps that's where our understanding begins to deepen. Because what if being good isn't about securing a reward, but about remembering our true nature? What if compassion, kindness, patience are not transactions, but expressions of the awakened heart? Let me tell you about a man I once knew, Elliot, a retired teacher in his 70s. He volunteered at a local food bank, visited his sick neighbors, and never raised his voice. And yet, in the span of 2 years, he lost his wife, his home, and was diagnosed with a rare illness. One afternoon I asked him, gently, "Do you ever wonder why this all happened to you?" He looked out the window, watching the light fall across the garden, and said, "Sometimes, but then I remember the tree outside my house gives fruit every year, even if no one thanks it. That's how I want to live, not because it protects me, but because it feels right." His answer has stayed with me, because in that moment I realized goodness is not a shield, it's a seed, and some seeds take longer to bloom. In Buddhist thought, we're also reminded of collective karma, the truth that we are not isolated individuals, but part of a shared human fabric. Sometimes the pain we carry is not just our own, but part of a deeper, ancestral sorrow. When we practice compassion in the face of suffering, we are helping to transform not just ourselves, but the whole field of human consciousness. This perspective doesn't remove the sting of injustice, but it does offer meaning. It reminds us that our role in this life may not be to avoid suffering, but to walk through it with such gentleness and grace that others find courage through our steps. So if today you find yourself asking, "Why me?" consider this: what if your goodness is not there to protect you from pain, but to carry you through it with dignity? What if your suffering, rather than being a sign of failure, is the ground where compassion deepens and blossoms? And most of all, what if being good isn't about escaping harm, but about remaining kind, even when life is not? As we move forward, let's explore how letting go, not of hope, but of control, can bring clarity in the most uncertain of times, and how turning toward the light, even when the heart is heavy, can shift everything. Part 5. Letting go brings clarity. What if the clarity you seek isn't hidden in more answers, but in the moment you finally let go of needing them? There comes a moment in every life, a moment quiet enough to miss, but powerful enough to change everything, when we realize we can't carry it all. The explanations, the regrets, the endless what-ifs. We've tried to figure it out, to fix it, to push through, and yet the more we cling, the heavier it becomes. The Buddha understood this deeply. He taught that suffering often begins not with pain itself, but with our grasping around it, the way we clutch at outcomes, identities, or control. Whatever is clung to will bring suffering, he said. But when we release the attachment, peace arises. There's an old Zen image I've always loved. A traveler is crossing a wide river on a raft. The current is strong, and the raft saves his life. When he reaches the other shore, he lifts the raft onto his shoulders and begins walking, with the raft still strapped to his back. Eventually, a monk sees him and asks, "Why are you still carrying the raft?" The traveler says, "It saved me once. I can't let it go." The monk replies gently, "Then it has become your burden." We all carry rafts, beliefs, expectations, relationships, identities that once gave us comfort, meaning, or safety. But sometimes, the very thing that once helped us begins to weigh us down. And still, we hold on. Not because we need it now, but because we fear who we are without it. There was a woman named Bernice I met during a mindfulness course many years ago. She was 69 at the time, recently widowed, and carried a pain she rarely spoke of out loud. For months after her husband's passing, she would sit beside his old armchair every evening, set a cup of tea beside it, and talk to the empty space. It brought comfort, a rhythm, a connection. But over time, the ritual turned heavy. The tea grew cold. The ache deepened. "I was clinging," she said softly one day, "not to his memory, but to my unwillingness to let him go." So one morning, as the sun rose behind her garden, She placed the cup on the earth beneath her favorite tree and whispered, "Thank you for walking with me this far. I'll carry your love, but not your absence." She didn't stop grieving that day, but she began breathing again. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean giving up. It means laying down what no longer serves the present moment, so the heart can meet life as it is. Sometimes it's as simple as turning the face toward the light. John Butler once described it with a gesture so subtle it almost passed unnoticed. He turned his palms upward. "This," he said, "is the posture of letting go, not because we're done, but because we're ready." Letting go brings clarity, not the clarity of having all the answers, but the kind that comes from not needing them so desperately anymore. It clears space. It quiets the mind. It returns us to the ground beneath our feet. And perhaps most mysteriously, it opens the heart to a deeper kind of wisdom, the kind that doesn't come from thinking, but from resting, noticing, and allowing. So the next time you find yourself clutching, whether to a story, a regret, or a version of how life should have gone, pause, ask gently, "Am I still crossing the river, or am I already on the shore?" And if you're ready, even just a little, try this. Take one breath, exhale slowly, turn your palms upward, whisper if you like, "I don't know," and that's okay. Because in that moment, something sacred happens. You stop trying to make the storm disappear. You start becoming the sky that can hold it. In our next and final part, we'll explore what it means to trust that sky, to walk not by knowing, but by faith. The quiet, steady kind that doesn't shout, but simply stays. Part 6. Faith is not knowing, it's trusting. What if the peace you're seeking doesn't live in understanding, but in resting gently inside the not knowing? We spend so much of life reaching for certainty. We want to know that everything will be okay, that the people we love will stay, that the pain we feel has a reason, that one day it will all make sense. But the deeper you walk along the spiritual path, the quieter your questions become, not because the answers are finally found, but because they are no longer needed in the same way. The Buddha didn't teach faith as belief in something unseen, but as a kind of inner steadiness, a confidence born not from having everything explained, but from being at peace even when nothing is. There is a story from the Pali Canon about a man wounded by a poisoned arrow. Desperate and in pain, he refuses treatment until he first gets answers. Who shot the arrow? What village did he come from? What was the string made of? The bow? The poison? The Buddha says, had that man insisted on knowing all of this before removing the arrow, he would have died from his wound. The teaching is clear. Endless questioning delays our healing. Sometimes we must remove the arrow before understanding how it came to be. Faith, the Buddha said, is the beginning of all virtues. It's the gentle trust that guides us toward awakening. It is not blind. It is not passive. It's the choice to keep walking even when the path ahead is hidden by fog. I remember once speaking with a man named Carl, 76 years old, who had lost his son in a sudden accident. For months, he was angry, not just at the world, but at any teaching that tried to comfort him. "Don't tell me there's a reason," he said. "There's no reason good enough." And truly, I had none to give. But then, slowly, something shifted. Not because he found answers, but because he began to sit in silence each morning. 10 minutes, then 20, sometimes with tears, sometimes with just breath. One day he said to me, "I still don't understand why it happened. I probably never will, but I don't need to fight the question anymore. I just need to be kind to myself as I carry it." That is faith, not the kind that demands explanation, but the kind that whispers, Even without the answers, I will stay, I will breathe, I will live with love anyway. Faith, in the Buddhist sense, is saddha, the trust that what you practice with care and presence will bear fruit, even if you cannot yet see it. Like planting seeds you may never watch bloom, but still planting them because something in you knows this is the way, and maybe that's the most honest kind of wisdom. One that doesn't rush the healing, doesn't chase the conclusion, but rests inside the unfolding mystery of life. You've walked through questions, you've sat beside grief, you've softened into strength, you've let go of needing every answer, and now perhaps you're ready for something simpler, deeper, quieter. Faith, not in the world always making sense, but in your ability to meet it with presence. Faith in the breath that keeps returning. Faith in the heart that keeps opening. Faith in the path that leads not to certainty, but to peace. So here we are, dear friend, at the turning of another page, not with a grand conclusion, but with a softer gaze. If tonight you find yourself staring into the dark, still wondering why, place your hand over your heart and say gently, even here, I can still trust. Because trust, like the Dharma, is not something you must force. It's something you remember, something you return to, something that was never far away. Do you remember the silence we touched at the beginning? Not the kind that comes from absence, but the kind that settles in after long years of asking. It's still here now. Perhaps not softer, but clearer, as if the ache has stopped shouting and has started just sitting beside you. Maybe that's all this moment ever wanted, not to be solved, not even to be understood, but simply to be witnessed. There's a saying in the old Zen tradition, let the muddy water stand, and it will become clear. We've stirred the waters tonight, not to chase clarity, but to let things settle on their own. Somewhere along the way, I noticed something subtle, not relief, not resolution, but permission. Permission to stop searching for meaning in every wound. Permission to let life be as it is, even when it doesn't make sense. Because maybe the path is not about escaping suffering, but about not being owned by it. And if tonight you still feel the weight, know that it doesn't make you broken, it makes you honest, alive, awake. And perhaps, somewhere in your life, there's someone sitting quietly with the same question folded inside their chest. If this story met something true in you, maybe, just maybe, it will meet them too. No explanation needed, only a small light shared from one weathered heart to another.